All right, Trevon. So let's go to our next topic. The Dallas Mavericks, man. They have been on a tear, really coming together, especially since they hit the trade deadline. They made some trades for PJ Washington and Gafford to kind of shore up the supporting cast around Luka and Kyrie. And let me say this. Luka and Kyrie have been on a tear, man. Like watching them play basketball together is it's must see TV, man. It's so fun to watch them play and how they play off of each other. It's high level basketball, man. If y'all haven't been paying attention to the Dallas Mavericks over this season, go check them out. And also, Kyrie has been injured. Luka's missed a few games, and they've just been kind of in and out of the lineup at the beginning of the season. But my question to you is, can the Mavs make a push in this final stretch of the regular season? And how far can the Mavs go once they hit the postseason?
Yeah, so I think they're in a good spot to end anywhere between that 6 to 4. Obviously, they could drop in the play-in. They typically kind of let go of the rope towards the end of the season, so this could really go either way. But I've always been a big fan of the Mavericks as far as just the structure of their roster, at least. I know they haven't always been able to turn the potential into fruition. But I've always
Hmm.
been a fan of how they've been structured. Simply after that Kyrie trade, like it was really rough. They gave up Dorian Finney-Smith and Spencer Dinwiddie, who were very complimentary and key parts of that run they had in the playoffs. Dorian Finney-Smith was the defensive player that was improving as a spot-up shooter. Spencer Dinwiddie was like that third ball handler because at the time they still had Jalen Brunson, and also mentioning that they did lose Jalen Brunson. So they were trying to really replace what they lost in Brunson in that second score, second ball handler. And in doing that, they had to get rid of Dorian Finney-Smith, Spencer Dinwiddie, like I mentioned earlier. So last year was really not fair to just the Mavericks off of that season because they lost a lot gaining a lot in Kyrie Irving, and you kind of knew it was one of those situations where it was like a next year type of thing where things would actually start to come together. And in that trade, actually, they were able to end the season in the spot to get a top 10 pick. They got Derek Lively, who's been playing very well. And just through the trade market as well, trading out Grant Williams, bringing in PJ Washington, that was a big thing. Another athlete to add to the squad who could play that four spot. And then you also get Gafford, who's a hustle big, does all the dirty work. And just even historically, not only with pairing with like a Luka and a Kyrie, you do want that backline rim protection because you're not as big or physical on the perimeter guarding the ball initially. So you can funnel them to the paint. You can force them into your bigger, more athletic, longer players. But just even historically, like the Dallas Mavericks have been at their best when they have athletic bigs that are vertical lob threats, can protect the rim, can rebound, be physical forces. Like historically, that's just been the Dallas Mavericks at their best. You think, and specifically, I'm talking about a guy like Tyson Chandler. Now, Lively isn't as big or physical as a Tyson Chandler, but he's has that rim protection. He's athletic. He can catch lobs, rebound. And Gafford is just one of those guys that's similar to that, where he's just gonna hustle, play hard, be physical. You're gonna feel his presence in the paint. And I just think adding the extra athleticism around the Dallas Mavericks has really helped them. You have just a lot of guys that are contributing to this Dallas Mavericks. And even last year when Kyrie and Lucas first started playing with each other, they were never not living up to their end of things. Like they were
Yeah.
always performing on offense. It's just everything around them wasn't really fitting well. And in fairness to them, like I said, they got rid of a lot of key pieces and lost a lot of key pieces to that team when they had a runs. But I think just now things are better fit around those two to where we're actually realizing how great these two are playing together. And Kyrie's had experience playing with a big play initiator and LeBron. I think that's really helping him now playing with Luca. And I think Luca having somebody that can just take some of that load off of him is very big because, Luca was always involved in every offensive play that they had. And I just think this is a really good fit for this squad. And I was really a big fan of what they did at the trade deadline. And I think we're seeing results because of that.
Yeah, most definitely. Especially what you said about last season. A lot of people overlook that. They just look at the record. They don't really look at the production that Luca and Kyrie actually had last season once the whole trade went down, and the amount of complementary pieces that they lost to get Kyrie. I think that had a big effect on where they actually ended up finishing in the Western Conference last season. But this season, I think that the front office has done a really good job of building around them. I think, like you said, at the trade deadline, they really went out there and got some pieces that can fit well around Luca and Kyrie and the rest of the team and kind of round out that roster. PJ Washington and then Gaffer, they kind of just sure up that big rotation because like you mentioned, Lively has done a really good job as a rookie, protecting the rim, being a lob threat for Luca and Kyrie, and just playing alongside Luca and Kyrie, I think has enhanced his effect on the game. So being able to bring in those two guys at the trade deadline to pair with the guys that have already done a really good job of coming in and filling in spaces around Luca and Kyrie. I think that this Dallas Mavericks team can make a pretty solid run towards the end of the season. And like you said, it could go both ways because you have some really good teams that they are ahead of right now. But yeah, I think the Dallas Mavericks are in a really good position. And if they can start to hit their stride in this final stretch of the season, they can make a pretty good jump and get some momentum going into the playoffs.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, they're probably the team I would put my money on to hit that shot because I think they're a lot more formidable right now in this point in the season than they were, the last season where they pretty much gave up at the end. And I really would like to see them in the playoffs because it was you could kind of feel it when Luca was in the playoffs, not seeing Kyrie and all the magician type plays that he makes. I saw like a clip on Instagram from the game they played against Phoenix where he kind of avoided a defender when he was going up for the layup, and he really could have laid it up on the right side, and he brought it back over to the left with
Yeah.
his right hand.
Yeah,
Like
I saw that. Yeah.
those type of plays that you don't get to see in the highest level of basketball, you can feel when you're missing out on something. And I just love this
Hmm.
part of the season because now it's still the regular season, but you could tell some of the games are starting to really matter because
Yeah.
you're talking about things like tiebreakers when it comes to like regular season series. Depends on who gets the higher seed if there's like a tie in a record and people are trying to get out of the play-in. People are trying to stay out of the play-in. This time of basketball is really where people should really start tuning in, get familiar with teams, players, and you can kind of really see who's going to match up against who. And now we're going to see what teams are really made of. So I think the Mavericks are one of those teams who you can really feel okay trusting in because one, you have Luca, you have Kyrie, and now you got formidable pieces around them who can actually play and provide things that they didn't have and cover those weaknesses of your two stars. And I think you can always take them against pretty much anybody because it's hard to say that Luca will not be the best player in that series. Like he could go for a triple double, he could go for 30 and 10, any game really. And when you have that and that offensive wizardry of Kyrie, and then like a lot of guys on that bench that are really coming in and providing, like Josh Green. I forgot Dante Exum was even in the league before the season. He's been playing very
He's been
well.
playing
To,
good. He's been playing good.
yeah.
Yeah.
Tim Hardaway Jr., what his threat is from the 3-point line, and he's doing a lot of things, can play very well with his veteran experience. So I think this Dallas Mavericks team is not a team to brush over. And if you are in the playoffs, they're a team I wouldn't necessarily be trying to play against.
Yeah, most definitely. And like you just said, this is the time of the season that the intensity of the game start ratcheting it up a little bit. Everybody's jockeying for position in terms of playoff seeding. And when that happens, it's just fun to watch NBA basketball. But going to your point about Luka Doncic in playoff situations, I mean, if you look at it, he's been a dog in playoff situations. 2 years ago, when he led the Mavericks to the conference finals and they ended up losing against the Golden State Warriors, him and Jalen Brunson were really the two offensive engines, and it was a lot of responsibility on Luka and also Jalen, but a lot of it was on Luka. You could just see they were really just five out. Luka go make a play, or Jalen Brunson go make a play, and then you go back to the Clippers series that Luka has had. He's just been going crazy. Everybody knows about the Sun series that happened, and playoff Luka is something that I think a lot of people should see at some point in time. You just got to go see him, and then you just add Kyrie into that mix and all that. But you also mentioned Tim Hardaway Jr. I think he's been a guy, especially in the past, in those series that I've talked about. He's a guy that can put up points real quick, man. So anytime you have that much support behind those type of stars in terms of Luka and Kyrie, anything can happen, man. And you also mentioned Josh Green is a guy that can provide perimeter defense and then also some sort of offensive contribution as well. Hardy, we haven't even mentioned him. So they just have a lot of pieces that could really make a really good impact on the game. So it's they just have a lot of really talented players on that team, and if they can get things together and really make a push, they have a high ceiling, to be honest with you, in my opinion. So they're a team to look out for in the West.